Hey everyone, hope you're doing well. It's been a while, but today we'll be continuing on our drawing app. So I've been asked a few times to add pan and zoom. So this video we're going to be working on the pan functionality. We'll do zoom in the next one. And yeah, let's get right into it. So first things first, it's been a while since I've touched this repo. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to update the dependencies just to make sure everything's with the latest versions of, Node, NPM, React. I think we were on React 16 when we started this. So I'm just going to hit an NPM install, and you can just see there's a few packages. So if I just head over to package.json, there's a few packages here, mainly these ones here that I just want to update to the latest version. Once we've done that, we're going to update the index.js file just to keep it in line with React 18. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy and paste a snippet from here on the right hand side, and it's almost identical. There's just a slightly different way of actually rendering the app itself. So I'm going to wait for this to finish, and then we can get on with the pan functionality. And there we have it. Everything is started as usual. So I can now go into my app and draw, and everything's working fine. Dependencies updated. There is one issue that I found on the text element here. So if you try to use the text element, it's just basically not going to work sometimes. And that's because if we search for the focus here, so what we're doing here is we have a text area that is basically doesn't exist unless we are writing, right? So we're bringing it in and out of the DOM, and then we're trying to do this kind of focus. So this assumes it's in the DOM, but of course, sometimes the timing of this isn't quite right. So sometimes it's not in the DOM yet, but we're trying to focus. And we basically need to be able to ensure that it's always in the DOM before we're calling this focus and updating the text. And this is just kind of a React thing. So what we can do is we can hack it a bit to make sure that this always gets kind of pushed to the back of the stack. And that kind of basically guarantees that it's always going to be brought into the DOM first, and whatever, this code block is basically going to happen last. And the way we do that is we just wrap it around in a set timeout. So we're going to do a set timeout. This is exactly what we want. We're not actually going to add any timeout, so that's just going to be 0. So now if we go back, hit the text, it's going to work as expected. So that's kind of the little fix out the way. Yeah, let's move on. So let's have a quick think about conceptually what we're going to be building here. So we're just going to be doing the pan functionality here. So if you head over to MDN, we're going to be using this translate function. So what we can do is we can take the canvas itself, we can take the context, and we can basically translate it left, right, up, and down. And what we want to do is, while we translate the canvas, we want to have an offset so that we make sure that we're always drawing in the same place. So what I mean by that, if we head over back into our drawing app, so if we basically draw a rectangle here, one of them is, let's just say we draw two rectangles. One of them is our viewport, which is what we see here, and the other one is the canvas, right? Right now, they're aligned, right? Which means this top left-hand corner is 0, 0, and that is in terms of the viewport, when we kind of reach for, I think it's client X and client Y a few times from the event, that is basically the viewport 0, 0. And that is perfectly aligned, or it's in sync with the canvas 0, 0, because right now they're sitting right on top of each other. So it's quite simple right now. If we want to draw a box from 0, 0 to 100, it's literally going to be, the canvas is going to match basically the screen. So that all works fine. The problem is, as soon as we start panning, what's going to happen is, let's say we pan to the right, so we're trying to see more of the right. What's going to happen is our canvas is going to basically move to the left. The canvas itself is infinite, so this kind of just, realistically, this just, continues to expand. But let's just assume the canvas has moved to the left. So now we've got a situation where the canvas is sitting at 0, 0 here, right? Whereas the screen is still, of course, all the way here. So that's basically what's going on. So now our canvas and our screen don't match up. So if we try to draw on 0, 0, if we try to do that 100, realistically, that block is going to be, we think we're trying to draw it here, but the block is going to be drawn over here. So what we need to do is we need to tell the application, hey, when I draw on 0 now, really what I want you to do is find the canvas 100 and kind of draw from there. Hopefully that makes a bit of sense. If not, we're gonna have a look anyways. But that's conceptually what's going on. So we're gonna keep track of the offset and yeah, take it from there. So yeah, let's get right into it. So step number 1, we're probably gonna want to add a bit of state to manage this offset. So I'm just gonna go all the way. Well, I'm just gonna close everything here, jump into the app, and I'm just gonna add a piece of state. I'm just going to call this pan offset. And what we're going to do is, yeah, we'll put this as, actually that was fine, x0, y0. So it's always going to start off at nothing. And next up, what we're going to do is we're just going to head over to our use layout effect. So this is where we're actually kind of doing our rendering, and we're basically going to translate based off of the offset. So what I'll do is let me just rearrange this. So I'll move this up here. We're going to do the context translate. There we go. We're going to translate the pan offset here. And to be honest, just so we can kind of see what's going on, what I will do first is I'm going to do context.fill rect. There we go. So now we should just see a rectangle in the top left. So this is just so we can kind of get our bearing. Well, actually, what I'll do is I'll pop it on 50-50 just so it's a bit off. So this is kind of our base, when it's matching, it's our base. Then what we're going to do is we're going to translate here. So right now I won't move anything, but if we translate this, let's say 50, or let's do minus 50, it's going to move back. So we've translated the whole canvas at minus 50. So although we drew it at 50-50, you can see here, if I pop this minus 50-50, it's actually drawing basically what looks like 0-0. So this is what we mean by the offset. So that is just so we can kind of keep our bearing with the panning to make sure it's all working. So one thing you'll notice straight away, if you try this, as soon as I start drawing here, you're going to see as we start to re-render, if I do this and, well, let's put this at 50. So let's just assume we've panned 50-50. And I start to draw, it's basically going to run away. You can see that it's kind of just running away. And what's happening there is every time it's re-rendering, so as I click and I kind of move along, every time it's re-rendering there, it's basically recalling this translate. So translate doesn't start from 0. When you've changed the context of the canvas, that's basically, it's mutable, so it's changed. So what we need to basically do is we need to say, well, actually, I don't want you to keep adding 50. I don't want you to keep adding these. I want these to be the actual value, right? So basically, I want to reset the state and explicitly set it to whatever values I want it to be. And we do this, basically, there's a way to do this within context, and that's by using something called, so there's context save and context restore. So I'll leave links to this as well. So there's a save and restore. This is NDN, so context save and context restore. Let's see if we can find the MDN version. There we go. So what I'll do is I'll leave these links in the description below. High level, what this is basically for is exactly this scenario. It's you want to take a snapshot of the context and all the weird things you've added, such as translations, such as scaling, skewing, kind of things like that. You want to save the state it's in at the very beginning. You want to change them, do your drawings, and then you want to reset the state. And bear in mind, when you reset the state, the drawings stay in place, but the state itself resets. So what we're going to do is, I think we will do this down here. So we're going to do context.save. So this is basically the initial save. This is basically saying we haven't translated anything yet. We haven't skewed anything yet. Just take a kind of a snapshot, do our translation, draw the elements on the new translation. So everything will be offset. And at the end, we're basically saying here, restore. So actually bring back the initial context, because next time we come in and re-render it, we're going to basically reset everything back to what we wanted. So this basically gives you a clean slate to draw on. Hopefully that makes a bit of sense. If not, I'd recommend reading these documents. They've got some kind of good visualization that helps that. So now if we jump back into this, refresh, if I draw the rectangle now, you'll basically just see that it's not running away. And you'll also see that where I'm drawing is offset, right? So the squares here are not, it's not exactly where the mouse is, right? Which is expected because we haven't added the offset to where we're drawing. So yeah, let's add that now. So of course, because we know what our offset is, all we need to do is basically subtract that from our existing mouse positions on the X and Y. So we'll go over to basically these three handlers, the handle, mouse, down, move, and up. We can take this event and we're just going to wrap that around in a new function, get mouse coordinates. There we go. And what I'll do is I'll just create that function here. So create that function. Let's pop that into a arrow function just to keep that consistent. We're going to redefine client X, and that's just going to be, yeah, exactly. That's just going to be client X minus the pan offset. Same with the Y. And then we can return that functionality. Thank you, GitHub Copilot. Then we can just pop that into the move and up functionality. I think that's it. So what we're going to do is I'm just going to now rerun. Well, what I'll do is I'll move this fill rect into our, basically into our translate, right? We'll pop that to 0-0. So that's just as if we've drawn it on the 0-0. It's still going to stay on the 50-50 because that's where we have the pan. But now, as we draw, it's just going to look like normal. So it looks like nothing's happened. But if we basically change this offset, so let's pop 150, 150, it's going to move down. And now we basically should be able to draw in the same place, right? So now we've kind of handled the panning and drawing while we're panning. Yeah, let's just move on to the actual panning itself, changing this offset. We're going to be doing that in a couple of different ways. So if I scroll up or down or left or right, or basically using the shift with up and down on the mouse, that should basically scroll it. And then, and that's the simple one. And then what we'll do is we'll just handle the panning if you either middle click the mouse button or press space. So what I'll do is I'll pop this back to 0. And basically we're going to add a new use effect. So we're going to track the wheel. We're going to add a new handler on the wheel. So let's just take this use effect here. Let's expand it. We'll remove these dependency arrays. We're going to add a listener. I keep calling them handlers, but a listener here, and that's going to be that's going to listen on the wheel. Let's rename this function to be pan function, and let's just remove everything inside of here. And what we'll do is actually we'll just start off by logging the event. So let's just understand, what's going on when we scroll. So if I scroll down, you can just see that we have this delta y that's kind of jumping around. If I scroll down, basically the faster I scroll, the higher the number. And if I scroll up, it's just going to go in the opposite direction, so it is inverted. And if I scroll either on my mouse left and right, and you can do the same for the delta x. Also, if I obviously hold shift left and right, it's going to do the same thing. So we're going to take that into account. The next thing we're going to do is, you can notice that there's already kind of some of these scrolling wheels here. We're going to remove those, so we'll set kind of the canvas to absolute and change the Z index so that doesn't bother us anymore. Because we only want to scroll within the canvas. We don't want to actually scroll within the browser itself. So what we can do is pan function here. All we want to do is we want to set the pan offset. We want to take the previous state. Yeah, that's good. And we want to set X. Yeah, that's absolutely fine. That's absolutely fine. The only thing we want to do here is we want to invert these. As I said, when you scroll up, it goes negative. When you scroll down, it goes positive. So we're basically just changing the state based off of the, I think I need another record there, based off of the delta X. So that should be fine. The other thing we want to do is, so we want to scroll down to the bottom. We want to head over to the canvas. Let's just add a bit of style to the canvas. We'll set this position to absolute. Absolute, there we go. And then what we're going to do is we're going to add a Z index here, just so that all the buttons here will still work. Otherwise, they're going to be behind the canvas, and that won't work. So let's go up. I think we can just add this here. So we'll add a Z index of 2 to everything else, basically. There we go. And I think that should be it. One final thing. So let's see, scroll. Yeah, so you'll see here, as I'm drawing, I'm scrolling, nothing's happening. Then I kind of draw something else, everything disappears. And that's because we're basically just forgetting to re-render as we scroll or as we change the pan offset. So I'm going to open up the app again, back into the use layout effect, and I'm just going to add the pan offset here to the dependency array, which basically means anytime the pan offset changes, which it will as we scroll, we just want to re-render. We want to re-render everything basically. So we jump back into this for final time. We draw a few rectangles now. As we scroll up and down, left and right with the shift, that's all working fine. And of course, as we keep drawing, that's all working perfectly. Cool. So that's the absolute basics of the pan functionality. What we're going to do is we're going to spend the last few minutes. I'm going to add basically the mouse click and the space click, or the splice and drag. So that's kind of the drag offset as well. So yeah, let's add that in. So in order to do this, what we're going to do is we're going to head over to the mouse down. This is basically when you click the middle button, it's still going to count as a mouse down. We just need to differentiate the type basically. So there is kind of an identifier. So what we can do is inside here in the handle mouse down, we can just take just over here. We're just going to check the event.button. So the buttons basically go 0, 1, 2 for left click, middle click, right click, I think. So we'll just do 1 here. And what we're going to do is if it's the middle click, what we're going to do is we're going to set the action. So we're going to reuse the action that we've already had. We're going to set this to panning, right? So we're going to maintain a new piece of state. And this state is going to be called, let me just get that from the right hand side. The start pan mouse position, right? I'm just going to return here. So when we click on the middle button, what we're going to do is we're setting a new piece of state. We're saying, look, now we're panning, and we're going to start at this point. We're going to start panning from this point because we basically want to take the difference from this point to wherever we go to, and that's what we're going to play around with the offset. So that's what we're going to do there. We're going to go up to use state here. There we go. So start pan position, and that's just going to start off similar to the other offset, which is just going to be x0 and y0. So when we click down, we're going to be setting the panning. We're going to be setting this the start of the pan position, and then if we go to the handle mouse move here, down here, what we're going to do, I'm just going to copy and paste this little snippet. We're going to check if it's panning. So if we are panning, then we're just going to get the delta. Very simple. We're going to take the current client X, or wherever we are on the screen. We're going to take it away, or we're going to subtract it from the where we started, basically. And then we're going to set the pan offset to, again, the existing pan offset, and we're going to add the delta that's already there. So I think actually here we might be better off to do previous state. There we go. And I think that's it. And then when it handle mouse up, we don't need to do anything here because it's basically not going to hit any of these blocks, and it's just going to set everything back to none. So that should kind of reset everything. So what should happen now is if I click the middle mouse button and I start dragging around, it should just move along. So again, all we're doing is we're taking that point that we're clicking in initially, And then as we move around, we're just basically taking the diff from the new mouse position to the original mouse position. That's what we need to keep in state. And we can drag around. So that works absolutely fine. We can still scroll. We can still draw. Everything's working fine. Let's just make sure the pencil is working fine. Line's fine. Selections all good. One thing, that's not there. So let's go ahead and remove the hard-coded in rectangle. One thing that's going to be a bit off now is going to be the text tool. So if I do the text tool, it's way off actually. You can see it there. And that's because, again, if you remember, the text tool isn't actually on the canvas. So when we do the text area, it's in the wrong place. So when I click down, the text area itself is somewhere else. But then when I click off of it, it then ends up getting rendered in the right place. So what we need to do is we need to go down to this text area, and we basically need to subtract the pan offset, or we need to add the pan offset. So we're basically undoing what we've done elsewhere. So when we're drawing, we're subtracting the pan offset, but actually on the text area, we want to re-add it, right? So and that's because the selected element will have it subtracted. So we're just basically saying, actually, we took the mouse position, we removed the pan offset, we took the diff. But for the text area, we just want to add it again because we just want the actual mouse position. We could probably store the actual mouse position in state. That might be easier, but it's absolutely fine. We're kind of hacking this together, so that shouldn't cause too much of a problem. So if I do text now, it's going to be in the right place. So that's absolutely fine. I think we're good. The final thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy one little hook. I'll go over it quickly. So I'm adding a use pressed keys hook here. All this is doing is it's maintaining a set of any of the keys that you press down. So we're adding a few listeners for key down, key up. As we key down, we're just going to add the letter or the key to the set. As we key up, we're just going to try to remove it from the set. And what this basically gives us is it gives us a list of, or a set, I guess, of keys that have been pressed, or pressed keys. And the reason I'm doing this is just so we can now track the space bar for panning, and later on when we do the zoom, we're going to track the command bar. And in theory, we're going to be tracking lots of different things using the keys. So that's probably a useful thing to add. So if I just add that here, and then what we're going to do is we're going to head over to our where we do the event.button one here. So as well as checking for the middle click, what we're going to do is we're going to check also if the pressed keys basically if it has a space bar. So as we're moving around, we do that, but also if we press the space bar and then we click normally and move around, it's going to basically pan like normal. If I remove the space bar, back to the mouse, that's going to be working absolutely fine. Yeah, so I think that's everything I wanted to cover in this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Next video, we're going to be having a look at the zoom functionality, so keep an eye out for that. But thank you very much for watching. Have a good day, and I'll see you in the next one.